Most people have a plan. It just happens to be a terrible one. They've got a full tank of gas, a bug-out bag shoved behind the passenger seat, and the quiet confidence of someone who once watched a documentary about preppers and nodded along approvingly. They figure when things get bad, really bad, grid down, no fuel, no signal bad, they'll just drive out, load the family up, hit the highway, and be 3 states away before the chaos catches up. What they don't realize, what nobody seems to want to say out loud, is that the highway is exactly where they'll die, stuck in a line of identical thinking in an identical car running on fuel that stopped being replenished 4 days ago, surrounded by 2 million other people who had the exact same plan. Picture this, day 4 of a grid-down event, Interstate 95 somewhere between Baltimore and Philadelphia. A guy in a spotless 2024 truck, lifted, decaled, full tank when this started, sits completely still in the left lane. The engine won't turn over. Not because of fuel, because a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse 3 days ago killed every solid-state component in his engine control unit, and now it's dead silicon in a metal shell. Traffic stretches for miles in both directions. Horns are blaring non-stop. People are arguing, abandoning vehicles, and starting to walk with whatever they can carry. Children are crying in the back seats. And through all this growing panic and chaos, he's watching from his driver's window as 2 guys on beat-up bicycles weave calmly through the stopped cars in the median, moving at a steady 12 miles per hour like it's a normal Tuesday morning commute. He had the more expensive vehicle by far. They had the better thinking. That gap between the vehicle that looks capable and impressive in normal times and the vehicle that actually moves when the entire supporting ecosystem collapses is exactly what this script is about. Not fantasy, not cool guy tactics, just cold, field-tested reality. The first vehicle on every serious veteran's shortlist is the pre-1980s mechanical diesel truck, and the reason starts directly with that painful scene on I-95. When a high-altitude nuclear detonation or a severe geomagnetic storm produces an EMP event, effects vary significantly depending on altitude, yield, distance, and even vehicle orientation, so this is a serious risk vector, not a guaranteed outcome. The damage pathway specifically targets modern electronics, engine control modules, ignition systems, sensors, and dozens of other solid-state components. A mechanical diesel from 1974 or earlier ignites through simple compression and mechanical timing. There is no computer to fry. The alternator charges the battery through basic electromagnetic induction. You can swap a dead battery with jumper cables and a working donor vehicle, and you're back on the road in under 10 minutes while thousands of modern trucks sit lifeless around you. But EMP resilience is half the story. Diesel fuel has massive advantages for long-term storage. It degrades far more slowly than gasoline. Properly stored in good conditions, it stays viable for a year or more without additives, and with stabilizers it can last several years. More importantly, in a real collapse scenario, diesel exists in places the average panicked civilian never thinks to check. Home heating oil tanks in suburban basements, half-full farm equipment reservoirs in rural sheds, large generator tanks at hospitals, police stations, data centers, and municipal buildings. While desperate crowds fight over the last drops at gas stations, you're quietly accessing an entirely different, less obvious fuel ecosystem that most people don't even know exists. You're not just choosing a truck, you're choosing strategic fuel access most of the population will completely miss. Now, before we get to the second vehicle on this list, here's something worth saying out loud. What if the next vehicle costs under $500, needs nothing but a hand pump and a spare chain, and will still be moving efficiently long after every motorized option has run dry and been abandoned? The bicycle, not as a punchline, not as a last resort, as the tactically serious urban phase tool that special operations units have used for infiltration and movement for decades. Think about what a truck does in a collapsed urban environment. It announces your position with engine noise and size. It constantly needs fuel. It gets trapped for days or weeks behind gridlock that isn't moving. It paints a bright target on your back saying, "I have supplies worth stealing." A well-equipped bicycle completely flips the script. It moves at 12 to 15 miles per hour in total silence. It slips through gaps between vehicles, jumps curbs, lifts easily over barriers, and can be hidden under a tarp or bushes in seconds. With quality military-grade panniers, frame bags, and a small trailer, you can comfortably carry 40 to 60 pounds, or even more, without destroying your ability to maneuver. The bicycle isn't the vehicle that takes you across 3 states. It's the smart tool that gets you out of the deadly urban kill zone alive while everyone else sits trapped in their 1,000-pound paperweights, watching you disappear through the median. But what if the next option on this list runs on something that literally grows everywhere, never requires any supply chain, and has been successfully moving soldiers and warriors across impossible terrain for thousands of years? The horse. And if your first instinct is to laugh or skip past this section, you're making the exact same mistake that countless modern logistics planners have made right before harsh reality corrected them. In Afghanistan in 2001, the now famous photographs of Green Berets on horseback weren't some romantic historical throwback. They were the most practical, effective solution available at that moment. Mountain terrain, almost no reliable fuel infrastructure, and enemies who moved quickly on foot through narrow passes where no vehicle could possibly follow. The horses worked when nothing with an engine could. In a true long-duration collapse, the kind that extends past the 6 to 12-month mark where stored fuel has been consumed, fought over, contaminated, or chemically degraded, the horse solves the single biggest long-term problem every motorized vehicle on this list will eventually face: finite energy. Diesel eventually runs out. The horse eats grass and drinks from streams. It reproduces. It navigates steep, rocky terrain that shreds tires and snaps axles. It crosses rivers that stop every wheeled vehicle cold. It moves almost silently through forests at night. A well-conditioned horse can sustainably carry a rider plus 100 pounds of supplies 25 to 30 miles a day after day, on resources that grow naturally all around you. The honest caveat, the knowledge and skill barrier is genuinely high. Learning to ride well, shoe horses properly, manage basic injuries, read their behavior, and handle long-distance hoof care requires serious time and effort invested beforehand. None of this can be learned effectively on departure day. But for people who've already put in that preparation, the horse becomes arguably the most durable long-term mobility asset on the entire list, because its fuel grows from the ground beneath your feet. If the horse represents the deepest long-term thinking, the next vehicle represents the widest geographic thinking. And among veterans who've operated across multiple countries and continents, it comes up constantly: the pre-2000s Land Cruiser or Defender class 4x4. Not primarily for its off-road capability, although that is real and proven. It earns its place through its unmatched global repair infrastructure. Toyota's 70 Series Land Cruiser has been in continuous production since 1984. For decades, aid organizations, UN missions, mining companies, NGOs, and military logistics units on every inhabited continent have chosen it for one simple reason: you can find compatible parts and competent mechanics in rural Africa, the remote Australian outback, Central American villages, and dozens of other remote locations where no official dealership has ever existed. That global footprint is not marketing hype. It is the result of 40 years of real-world deployment that created a practical parts and knowledge network most modern vehicles could never match. In a collapse that forces you to move across regions or even international borders into territory you never planned for, this is often the vehicle that keeps running long after every improvised repair on other machines has failed.
And speaking of vehicles built specifically for a world with no support structure, if you think the Land Cruiser was designed with harsh conditions in mind, the next one was designed with no conditions at all in mind. The HMMWV earns its place through a single, uncompromising design philosophy. Every civilian vehicle is built around the assumption that a service center exists within 50 miles. The HMMWV was built around the opposite reality, that no service center may exist for 60 days or longer, and the vehicle must still remain fully operational. That one requirement drove every major engineering decision. Portal axles that raised the entire drivetrain significantly higher than any civilian off-roader at the same wheelbase. A centralized tire inflation system you can adjust from the driver's seat while moving across changing terrain, and rugged body-on-frame construction that allows you to lose entire body panels to damage or enemy fire without a single fault code or warning light shutting the vehicle down. The parts are military standardized, meaning in any environment where other military equipment is present, abandoned, traded, or scavenged, you have access to a proven cross-compatible parts pool. It will never win awards for comfort, fuel efficiency, or style, but it was designed, from the first bolt, for exactly the kind of broken, austere world you may one day wake up in. For rural survivors, the sixth vehicle is the one almost nobody outside agricultural communities discusses, yet it keeps appearing on the private lists of people who think realistically past the first 30 days. The pre-1980s farm tractor. Old mechanical diesel models from John Deere, Case, or Massey Ferguson, built tough for decades of hard use with zero expectation of nearby technical support. Here is the mental image that makes this choice suddenly click for most people. It's month 3 of the collapse. Roads are compromised or outright dangerous. Fuel is extremely scarce and getting more expensive by the day in barter terms. Most people are paralyzed, constantly doing painful math about whether moving is even worth burning their last few gallons. You're not having that conversation anymore. You're hooking up your old tractor to break ground on a half-acre plot that will feed your group through the next 8 months. Later, the same week, you'll use that same machine to haul the harvest, move heavy supplies, clear fallen trees, or pull a stuck vehicle out of the mud. Everyone else has a vehicle purely for transportation. You have a vehicle that produces food, sustains life, and multiplies your resources. That's not a small upgrade. That's an entirely different category of survival asset. The tractor pulls loads that would destroy a normal pickup's drivetrain. It runs on the same shadow diesel network you already understand. It's slow, 15 to 20 miles per hour on road, but in a world where raw utility, reliability, and sustained capability matter far more than speed, slow stops being a weakness and becomes almost irrelevant. The seventh vehicle is the one that generates the least debate among veterans with riverine operations background and the most confusion among everyone else: the flat-bottom aluminum John boat with a small outboard motor. Here is the question most people never think to ask. If every road is gridlocked, controlled, or compromised, what are the rivers doing? They're empty, completely empty. Most major American cities and towns were originally built along waterways because water was the original, most efficient logistics highway long before roads ever dominated the landscape. In a collapse, that forgotten advantage returns with a vengeance. A flat-bottomed John boat drawing less than 6 inches of water can navigate rivers, lakes, and flooded areas that completely stop every land vehicle on this list. The aluminum hull has no complex drivetrain to seize, no suspension to fail catastrophically, and no computer to die. A small 15 to 25 horsepower 4-stroke outboard can push a heavily loaded boat at 8 to 12 miles per hour for hours on very little fuel. When the fuel eventually runs out, you simply row or pull the rest of the way. Cargo capacity is massive compared to land options. One good river run can move supplies that would require multiple overloaded and risky truck trips overland. Of course, vulnerabilities exist and should be respected. You're limited to waterways, more visible on open stretches, and tactically exposed without good natural cover. You must know your specific rivers, seasonal flows, flood stages, choke points, and low bridges well before departure day. But for those who have done that homework in advance, the inland river network becomes the hidden superhighway that the vast majority of evacuating people will never even consider using. Here is the thread that runs through all 7 vehicles. Every single choice was made by asking one hard, honest question. What does this vehicle need to keep running, and what happens when those needs completely disappear? That single question ruthlessly eliminates almost everything parked in most driveways today. What remains is a shorter, stranger, less glamorous list, but one that actually works when the world stops working. And the final piece, the one that appears on no gear list but ultimately determines everything, is whether you know your chosen vehicle deeply enough to keep it running when it inevitably starts to fail. Because in a real collapse, nothing works perfectly for long. The old diesel begins burning oil. The horse throws a shoe on day 3. The bicycle gets a puncture on bad gravel. The outboard overheats after 2 hard hours. The people who keep moving month after month are not the ones who bought the most expensive or capable equipment. It's the ones who developed the mechanical depth, the improvisation instinct, and the quiet patience to keep imperfect tools functional across imperfect conditions for a long, grinding period. That knowledge is not built on day 1 of a collapse. It is built now, in the calm before the storm, through the slow, deliberate accumulation of real mechanical skills that most people have completely outsourced to professionals they will no longer be able to reach when it matters most. Choose the right vehicle. Learn it until you know exactly where it fails. And when the moment comes, be willing to drive something ugly. Because in the end, ugly is what keeps moving when everything else stops.